Salute, people. It is Tony the Savant back again. Hope everybody's having a good to great day, man. And I just wanted to do my South Carolina and Iowa prediction. We got a big game coming up tonight. Uh, all things considered, probably the biggest game in women's sports history. Uh, I'll probably put a couple Serena Williams matches in the mix with this, but this is probably the biggest thing on paper for women's sports. And we're talking about legendary coach, legendary players, legendary coaches, legendary players, great teams on both sides. I think quiet is kept. There's a lot of press surrounding, Coach Staley. A little bit about on Camila Cardoso, and of course, more than enough press surrounding Caitlin Clark. But there's a lot of people not being talked about in this matchup that that I think they will shine this evening. And so, in my prediction, I just want to highlight some of these individuals, highlight uh, some aspects of the game that I think will, come into play tonight. And at the end of it all, give you my winner. I tell you my who I want to win, and then I tell you who I think is going to win. So, all in all, let's get right into it. Why don't we? So, it's no secret any longer who will be competing for a national title in women's college basketball. It would be the South Carolina Gamecocks versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. This matchup is a rematch of last year's Finals Four. As Caitlin Clark, and I just rematched this game. I mean, I'm just gonna rematch. I just rewatched this game a couple of days ago. Classic matchup. I think it was like 77-73. I think the end of the game was. Great game. There's a particular part of this game that I just I think people probably forgot about it, even despite the fact that it was a viral moment. But if you all remember this moment and that game last year, now if you're not familiar with what's going on, that is the freshman Raven Johnson with the ball. She turns the ball over. You see it again in slow mo. Caitlin Clark weighs off the freshman Raven Johnson. And that has been a defining moment in Raven Johnson's collegiate career. And she's been, saying a lot in the press, saying a lot, but I don't find too much wrong with it. But her being on her own personal revenge tour, I like it. I like the idea, the concept of it. Considering that moment, and I think a lot of people forget or have forgotten that moment because I feel like that moment is going to come into play tonight. All right. This young lady, Raven Johnson, is a phenomenal guard, very feisty on both sides of the ball. I think she kind of gets caught up in the mix. Of course, you got the Camila Cardoso, who's probably the most notable player on the team. But you also got Tessa Johnson, who's a phenomenal talent. Malaysia Fulwiley, I want to say her last name is. She's also another big time player on this team. Uh, and I like another one of my personal favorites on this team is Chloe Kitts. I believe that's the young lady's name. She's a nice, solid player off the bench for this team. So it's just a matter. It's a loaded roster, very deep in depth. It's probably going to be the total opposite of what Iowa was facing against UConn. As you know, we all know UConn lost five key players, and they came into this game. Well, they came into the entire tournament shorthanded a bit, but they were still able to, with well coaching. Uh, Sorry, one second, guys. They were still able to get far in the tournament. Excuse me, because of excellent coaching, disciplined play, and of course execution. Um, Controversial end to that call. I think UConn Nation, has gotten a little bit over it since the men were able to punch their ticket last night to the championship game after defeating Alabama. But still, nonetheless, it was a sting, controversial call. I hate for the game to end that way. We're seeing a lot of opinions swaying both ways, surrounding that issue. But nonetheless, tonight we'll be getting a rematch of the Final Four game last year between South Carolina and Iowa. And the storylines I don't think could have been any more uh, intense. As far as what's on the line for both of these teams. A lot of history. As Caitlin Clark is looking to cap probably the most decorative collegiate career. Um, I still contest Breanna Stewart has with the 4 championships, all 4 years she was in college, but she also played on loaded teams. She just was probably the most notable player in the mix. But what Caitlin Clark has been able to do, and as far as her, not just ascending her own personal profile, but also the entirety of women's sports. This young lady has done something that arguably would never be done again. And it's an testament. It's a. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know if that's the right word. It's a hats off. It's definitely a hat off to her hard work, dedication to the game, discipline. Seems like she has a very good supportive system with the family and all that good stuff. She reminds me a lot of my favorite player, my personal GOAT, Stephen Curry. Of course, not just with the range in her jump shot, but her mannerisms, her approach to the game, her attitude, her willingness to uh, divest, not just attention, but also, in crucial moments, be able to trust her teammates. A lot of those aspects remind me of my favorite and who I say is the greatest basketball player outside of Michael Jordan. Respectfully, Michael Jordan, I just feel like was never really in that conversation to be compared with other players. Other outside of Michael Jordan, Steph Curry is the greatest basketball player I've ever seen play the game of basketball. But uh, I digress. Caitlin Clark reminds me a lot of Steph, and I just think that she has been transcended. Not just for herself, like I said, for the entire women's sports industry. Uh, Between her and Angel Reese, they were able to garnish, you know, uh, my attention, bring my attention back to women's sports after their uh, very storied uh, uh, last season, 2022, 2023. I think I want to say 2022, 2023 seasons. Um, and so I was very much interested in what these young ladies would do following up this season. Been impressed. Been even more impressive than what they were able to do last season. Caitlin Clark more so than Angel Reese. We've seen Caitlin Clark become the number one scorer in college basketball history. We've seen her break all sort of records. I believe she's also the top assist leader in college basketball history, if not just in women's sports. Broken all kind of records up and down. Has led an improbable team, to new heights, for the program. Also bringing a lot of attention to her teammates like Gabby Marshall and Kate Middleton. We gonna say Kate Middleton. I think that's the young lady's name. Hannah Stalky, definitely. I think Hannah's only a sophomore, but I'll definitely be, following her at Iowa after Caitlin Clark goes on. If Hannah doesn't, go into the transfer portal, how these kids are moving these days. We'll see what happens to that. But Hannah Stalky has shown me that she's very a standout talent. So I'll be, because I've been following Caitlin Clark, I've also been, following and interested in Hannah Stalky's, storylines and career. All in all, to say that's just what Caitlin Clark has done, just for this college program and for women's sports so far. And when you look across the hall to their opponent, you're talking about a coach in Dawn Staley who has transcended, sport coaching as well. as I think that she is now putting herself into a category, with the all-time greats, leading this kind of team. After all things considered, losing five standout talents last season to the WNBA. The most notable of those being Aaliyah Boston, who will be covering the game this evening with on the panel. That's pretty dope to see. Aaliyah just won Rookie of the Year in the WNBA, so I didn't follow too much of what was going on in the WNBA outside of maybe the championship and a little bit of what the Aces was putting together throughout the season. But you know, excuse me, guys. Sorry, Aaliyah Boston. Excuse me. Um, I'll be very interesting to see what she'll be able to do. Following her Rookie of the Year campaign. But I'm glad to see that she's coming back to help announce this game. It'd be pretty cool to see. And of course, Dawn Staley, like I said, has transcended coaching. In my opinion, putting herself in the realm of some of the greatest to ever do it. Got talents like Miss Killer Camila Cardoso, who is definitely putting herself into some conversations. She's going to be a very standout talent at the next level as well. After these performances we have seen from her, and just all in all, what South Carolina has been able to do these last 5 years, just putting themselves into the categories of the dynasties of women's sports, basketball sports, the UConns and the Tennessees of the world. I think South Carolina is definitely, even like the Louisiana Techs. Shout out to Coach Kim Mulkey in that regard. But South Carolina is definitely putting themselves into that category. And also going for their third championship in 4 years. As last year, we all know that Iowa was the one to sour their attempt at a three-peat in the Final Four defeat. Also, Iowa is the only team to have defeated this team the last two seasons. So can they do it again? Can they beat this juggernaut twice in 2 seasons? And also be the reason, why the team wasn't able to fulfill their goals, their final destinies, if you will. Or excuse me, their final goal. That's what I was going for. Uh, Definitely interested to see. Like I say, a lot of storylines, a lot on the line. 1 second, John. Sorry, a lot of storylines, a lot on the line on both sides, um, and I'm very interested to see. Now, I think this is going to be a chess match as South Carolina's strong points. I know they got. I'm probably butcher the young lady's name, but Pow, Tahina Pow. She is a formidable range shooter, and I think after last season, Raven Johnson, she's shown that she's improved her jump shooting as well. She hit 3 big threes in the last game against North Carolina State, and so I think she's going to be up for the challenge tonight as well. But you also got to, be reminded that Camilla is at 6'7", one of the bigger players, one of the bigger forwards in women's sports, and so she is a force in the paint. They are definitely not to worry about that. Although I know she did have some kind of bit of an ankle injury the other night when they went against North Carolina State. So hopefully I haven't heard any reports when I was doing my research for this game. I didn't hear anything about as far as her having any lingering effects or anything that the team is worried about. So hopefully she's able to be herself. But if that's the case, Iowa's going to have to worry about the size advantage. And I think Hannah and the other young lady, I forget her name. It's another young lady that they have. Gotta see how big she is. I think she was listed at 6'5". I think Killer Camilla will have a challenge. Hannah did pretty good against Aaliyah Edwards. And she was undersized in that matchup as well. So um, I think she'll be able to hold her own against Camilla and the possessions that she does garner. And I think Iowa's going to be able to. But, that's one of the advantages of South Carolina. So if South Carolina is able to dominate in the paint, that's going to be a problem for Iowa. Iowa's a bit more of a finesse team. They're a little bit more of a team that is predicated on their speed and jump shooting. Not just Caitlin Clark, quiet as kept. Gabby Marshall is a good shooter. Like I said, the young lady Kate Middleton, she's a. I can't recall her last name. Forgive me, but I think her number's 20. Number 20. She's a pretty good shooter. Kate, I know her name is Kate. And then you also got Hannah Stalky, who is a present in the paint for this team. I think I mentioned it last time I recorded, or I may have mentioned it when I was streaming during the Iowa and LSU game. But Hannah has a 47-point game on her resume, so she is a bucket. She definitely can get those buckets and some tough buckets in the paint. For sure. I've seen her do that. She can get those buckets when the team calls on her. Against UConn, I mean, you can say that she was pretty much the number one option. Caitlin didn't really have it going on early. And she kind of got it going in the fourth quarter, was able to hit some big shots, but first quarter through third quarter, it was mostly Iowa depending on Hannah. So if they can get a heavy dose of that tonight as well, Hannah may be able to offset whatever Camilla is able to do. But yeah, this is going to be a chess match. Essentially power versus speed. You got a powerhouse versus the new kids on the block that have shown that they can compete as well. Iowa's got 5 players that competed last year, lost in that game. I mean, I believe they got the entire pretty much the same team, but they got 5 players that will be graduating, including Caitlin Clark, or graduating, I say, but moving on to the next level, on the professional level. 5 players leaving, so we all got something to play for tonight. And indeed, so does South Carolina. With the dynasty, again, if they've been able to put together, it'll be beautiful to see them able to win 3 championships in 4 years. That would seal the deal on them being a dynasty. Again, could have done it last year with a 3P, but it was a young lady on the rise. You may know her, Caitlin Clark. That soured that for them. And then when I rewatched that game, like I said, it just wasn't just Caitlin. Caitlin gets a lot of the press, of course, but Iowa has a very good, formidable team, especially amongst those guards. Feisty defense. They're going to give you all that they have. They're going to leave it all on the court. And like I say, this game is going to be a chess match. And every round of the women's basketball playoffs, or the women's basketball tournament since the Elite Eight, has just been a chess match, with the exception of maybe South Carolina versus North Carolina State. That shellacking, everybody kind of seen that coming. But outside of that, all of these games have been very close, very intense, and I think this game is going to be another one of those that goes down to the wire. So who do I want to win? I'm going to be honest. I want Iowa to win. I want Caitlin Clark to cap off essentially would be a perfect collegiate career. I would love for that storyline. But I got to say that I just think that South Carolina may just be too much. South Carolina is also on a revenge tour. I mean, if there was any other team that ended their run last season, their shot at a 3-peat, their shot at sending Aaliyah Boston off, as a champion, not as a champion, but just a 3-time 3-peat champion. Coach Dawn Staley, her ability to motivate and get her girls focused. This team has been locked in all season long. I mean, there's been times where they were down during this, undefeated season. There's been times that they have been down. It looked pretty daunting, and they were still able to get the win. Um, so it's not like they've gone unchallenged. So I think just the ultimate challenge is in front of them today. Who I think is going to win? South Carolina. I think that powerhouse, the experience, the championship culture, the everything is going to be there for them tonight. I think that comes into play in these moments, in these big stages. The only thing I see offsetting that is just another uh, remarkable performance from Caitlin Clark. She was able to do so in LSU. They needed all 41 of her points that evening to get that win. So we know that Caitlin can definitely step up. I think she had a 41 burger against South Carolina last season to, eliminate them out of the Final Four. So, like I said, the storylines around this game is just too good to be true. And I hate to even say that. I hate to say those things. Um, you know, but it is. It's just interesting on both ends. Whoever wins this won't just be walking away with a victory and a championship. Of course, that's good enough, but they'll also be making history. So, we'll be witnessing it one way or the other, which makes this matchup all the more interesting. I do believe that the game will be starting shortly here, so I'm gonna get off of here and start getting ready to see that game. I have not yet decided if I'm gonna call off work, but man, this is I love sports too much, man. I love sports. But anyway, it is your boy Tony the Savant. Y'all go out there and get a goal accomplished. Have a great day. Peace.